A beautiful crystal clear day here at Charlotte Motor Speedway as we are getting ready for first practice for the NASCAR Nationwide Series. 5 races left. Our coverage starts tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Eastern with NASCAR Countdown over on ESPN. And of course, there's a 3-man battle for the championship back in the garage area. Cars still getting those final preparations. Austin Dillon's car, there is our points leader. The 2 of Elliott Sadler, Austin Dillon in the 3, and of course the 6 of Ricky Stenhouse Jr. But the biggest news of the day in the world of NASCAR involves the driver of the 88 in the Sprint Cup Series. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is out of the seat for at least 2 races. He'll miss Charlotte and Kansas because of multiple concussions. The first one occurred back at Kansas. Remember, about just less than 6 weeks ago, the tire test, cut a tire, hit the wall hard, and then the second one this past Sunday, and we'll point right where Dale is, right in the middle there in the 88, as he has a second concussion here, had symptoms, went to the doctor, and he is now out of the car. It doesn't look that violent from there, but boy, when you get inside that car, it really is.
Oh, it really is, Marty. There's no doubt about that. Dale got hit numerous times right here. He gets hit there. He comes downhill, but the hard one is coming right now. Wham, right there. That spins him real quick and really rung his bell and made him say, hey, look, I've re-injured myself. I got to get out of this car. Something just doesn't feel right.
That's absolutely the key word, re-injured. He was injured in that test at Kansas, and it doesn't take much once you've had a concussion. You see him getting hit right here, getting shaking around that race car, and then the big impact right there. So,
well, earlier today, there was a news conference here at the Media Center. Dale Earnhardt Jr. spoke, so did his team owner, Rick Hendrick.
The shot at Kansas was, I think we got the data, but it was around 40 Gs, and the shot at Talladega was only 20 Gs. It wasn't really that big of a wreck, and the fact that I felt the way I did was what concerned me after the accident at Talladega, because it wasn't that hard of a hit. So I wanted to, process, how I felt over a couple days, and I went to the doctor Tuesday, actually. So, anyways, we, I just wanted to process what was happening, and I knew having them 2 concussions back-to-back was not a good thing. So I needed to go see somebody regardless of whether I wanted to get out of the car or not. So just for my own well-being, I couldn't, if I didn't need to go out and get in a race car and go get hit again, I needed somebody to tell me that, because I was going to have a hard time making that decision for myself, because I feel perfectly fine, but I don't want to keep getting hit in the head.
That's one thing everybody admires about Dale, is how honest and upfront he is. He cares a lot about the team, his fans, and the sport in general. And but when he knew that there was something not right, he went to see Dr. Petty here. And I admire him. I think a lot of guys would try to play hurt, but when the doctor tells you you get hit again, like right away, it could be catastrophic. So, I think this deal has worked out extremely well, as it could.
For us, there's no one better than Dr. Jerry Punch to explain all the details. And Doc, all the focus recently been on the NFL and their series of concussions. It's now hit home in the world of NASCAR.
It certainly has, Marty. The word concussion comes from the Latin concutare, which means to shake violently. And whether it's 2 football helmets colliding or a NASCAR driver hitting a wall or stopping quickly, that deceleration injury, here's what happens, folks. The brain is basically wrapped in 2 envelopes or membranes surrounded by fluid inside the skull. When you stop or you get that kind of contact, the brain sloshes forward against the front of the skull and then will slosh backward toward the back. If the frontal lobes are injured, that's where memory is. People who say, I don't remember where I am or who I am, that's the amnesia part. In the back, if it hits the back, that's the vision part, to get double vision or blurred vision. People say, well, I saw stars when I fell and hit my head. Now, as to why this wasn't diagnosed at the scene or at the racetrack, well, typically, some of the symptoms can be very subtle. If you watch the accident that took place at Talladega last Sunday, you'll see how violent these impacts can be on the racetrack. But as you see the drivers lurch forward in the cars, you may not realize that there's an incredible deceleration number. And as you heard Dale Earnhardt Jr. say, it was only 20 Gs, but there's a cumulative effect. He had a 40 G hit at Kansas, a 20 G hit at Talladega, and then it wasn't until Monday morning that he began seeing symptoms. Now, in a subtle concussion after an impact like this, typically early in the week, a driver can have anything from nausea, vomiting, blurred vision, dizziness, or headache. For Dale Earnhardt Jr., his symptoms from this impact was headache, a residual headache on Monday, and on Tuesday would send him to Dr. Jerry Petty. Now, how do you evaluate that? They did a complete neurologic examination to make sure that his balance was okay, his hearing, his vision was okay. Then they did an MRI to look for bruising or bleeding in the brain. All that was negative, thankfully, but the symptoms were there, and so Jerry Petty made a very difficult decision to keep Dale Earnhardt Jr. out of the car. As to when he would get back, well, the typical rule in the NFL and NASCAR is that 7 to 10 days after all the symptoms clear, he'll be cleared to get back in the car. How long does that take? Well, it could be 2 days, it could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 months. Everyone heals at a different rate, so he'll have to clear and then have 7 to 10 days after that before Dr. Jerry Petty would probably return him to the race car, or typically the NFL. As to what happens with the 88 car, well, Regan Smith has been hired to replace Dale Jr. And just moments ago, Regan Smith was able to climb in the 88 car for the first time. Now, Regan went to the shop last night to sit in Jimmy Johnson's seat and realized he's about the same size as Jimmy Johnson, so they got the backup seat from Jimmy Johnson and put it in the 88 car, and they just put Regan Smith in the car to see if the seat fits, if the pedals are the right distance, the steering wheel, the radio button, everything fits for Regan Smith. So Dale Earnhardt Jr. out for 2 weeks. Regan Smith will drive the car here on Sunday at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and again next week at Kansas Speedway. Marty?
Doc, great explanation. Thanks for all that information. As we come topside, practice, as you can hear in the background and see, has already started here, but let's put a button on this. Rusty Wallace, you've had some moments where we've wondered if you were going to be okay after some crashes.
I'll tell you what, Marty, I've been in a couple bad ones, and it'll flat knock your lights out. But the biggest thing, if you lose your equilibrium, you start getting dizzy, things like that happen, you got to get out of the car. I had a horrible wreck in 1993 at Talladega, Alabama, coming to the line as Dale Earnhardt Sr. behind me. My car gets up in the air, goes violently end over end, the body flies off the car, the motor flies out of the car, and I woke up in a helicopter. It knocked me out cold, and so these concussions are nothing to mess with, and I really commend Dale Earnhardt Jr. for getting out of that car, because if he feels bad, he can't drive this car. They're talking about 2 weeks him being out. Marty, this could take a lot longer. I'll never forget when this happened to me. 15 years, every single time I got in the shower to shake my hair dry, I was getting dizzy really, really bad. It finally went away, but it lingered on for a long time.
Brad, let's talk about the safety. Dale Jr. said, don't blame the car, don't blame the track, don't blame anything. This is going to happen, and we've seen it before.
Well, and I think NASCAR needs a tremendous pat on the back here because of the safety implementations that they have. This is a very violent sport. 200 miles an hour, 3,500-pound race car. Catastrophic things can happen, but we've seen some accidents, and because of the soft walls, because of the larger greenhouse on these race cars, these race car drivers have a better opportunity. Here we are at Talladega in the spring. Eric McClure, you're going to see, comes shooting out of the pack. Right there, tremendous impact into the wall. It's a soft wall. If that wall had been concrete, Lord knows what would have happened to Eric McClure. Only missed 5 races and was able to move on. We see Dale Earnhardt Jr. here in the middle of the storm as it's getting ready to take place. This could have put him out a lot longer than possibly just a couple of races if it had been the old race car that had the smaller greenhouse. I think he got very, very lucky here, and hopefully Dale Earnhardt Jr. will be better in a couple of weeks.
So as the developments continue to become available to us, we'll pass them on to you, but you're now up to date with everything that has happened so far with the 88. All right, let's shift our attention back to the Nationwide Series because we have a great championship battle brewing. There you see the points leader, the number 2, Elliott Sadler, right alongside the number 3 of Austin Dillon. And here are how these 3 contenders, with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in the mix, how they've done on the mile-and-a-half tracks. And Stenhouse has the most wins.
Yeah, I think that Roush Fenway product is the toughest, the strongest on the mile-and-a-half tracks. Elliott Sadler has figured out a way to stay in contention, though, at the end of those races. Stenhouse the strongest, and Austin Dillon is always in the mix.
Well, Brad, Austin Dillon's the one I'm looking at right now. I mean, this thing is getting to the end here. Not many races left in the Nationwide Series, and these guys are getting very, very serious about this championship. All of Richard Childress Racing, particularly Richard Childress, is working very hard for Austin Dillon to get this young kid his first championship, and the whole team's behind him, and also Elliott Sadler also.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, blood's thicker than water,
yeah,
and they're working really hard for Austin right now.
You mentioned mentioned Austin Dillon, and on that graphic you noticed he scored more points on the mile-and-a-halfs this year than the other 2 championship contenders. All right, let's get our pit reporters involved because there is still more news involving Regan Smith. How about it, Dave Burns?
Yeah, Marty, I want to get to the 88 just for another beat here because it did flow over into the Nationwide garage. Rick Hendrick in that press conference this morning was asked why Regan Smith in the 88 Cup car. And Rick said, well, for one reason, we're thinking about putting him out for the championship at Junior Motorsports related to Hendrick Motorsports next year. And I confirm with both crew chiefs down here, yeah, Regan's in the discussion. Nothing's been decided yet. We have 2 race cars to put on the track, and Regan would certainly be a good candidate for that. By the way, the current driver of the 88 car here in the Nationwide Series, Cole Witt, told me this morning that he has nothing set for next year. The door's not closed here at Junior Motorsports, but he'll be looking to further his efforts wherever he can in this garage, but nothing set so far. So interestingly, Regan Smith possibly to Junior Motorsports next year, per Rick Hendrick this morning. Now, meanwhile, they did mention earlier, championship in the Nationwide Series. For more on the guys who are running for that, let's go to Jamie Little.
Well, a lot of news going on right now in the Nationwide and Cup Series garages, but in the meantime, you see Elliott Sadler, point leader's car, sitting here in the garage. Now, he told me his plan of attack for this practice session is just to turn a handful of laps. Why? He said the track is hot, for one, and 2, there's no rubber laid down because it is the first practice session of the weekend. So once he comes out, they'll do a systems check, make sure that the ride heights are good. And meanwhile, the guy who's chasing him in the points, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., is out on the track now. He too will turn a handful of laps, make sure everything is good with the cars. So we'll continue following everything down here in the Nationwide Series garage. Right now, we'll go back upstairs to Marty.
Thank you, Jamie. As you see, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. turning a few laps out there, and will give us a chance to give you the entire calendar because we have got a lot of action for you. Coming up next, it'll be Sprint Cup practice. Then at 5:30 Eastern, we'll have NASCAR Now. We'll be back at 6 o'clock Eastern with final practice for the Nationwide Series, and then following us will be Sprint Cup qualifying at 7 Eastern. All of it's on ESPN2. Now tomorrow, Nationwide Series qualifying at 4 Eastern. 5 Eastern, we'll have NASCAR Now. Final Cup practice at 5:30. Then at 7:30, it'll be the Nationwide race presented by GoDaddy, and that's on Saturday. And then 7 o'clock Eastern, the Sprint Cup Series Bank of America 500 at Charlotte. That is on ABC.
NASCAR Nationwide Series Practice is brought to you by McDonald's. I'm loving it.
As you can see, not a chance of any rain in the forecast today. Not a cloud within 10 miles of this place. As you can see, a very happy Elliott Sadler still waiting to go out. His 2 other contenders in the championship have turned laps. In fact, they are leading the board right now. Austin Dillon is the quickest right now. He turned a lap at 29.94 seconds at 180 miles an hour. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. right behind him, just 3/100ths of a second slower.
I'll tell you what, Austin Dillon come off the truck onto this racetrack almost dead on. This car was fast right off the bat, and it looks real good right now. I will tell you, this racetrack has not been raced on since the race here in the Coca-Cola 600. That's been many months ago, so it's pretty green out there right now. A lot of rubber getting laid down. His cars are probably going to change a lot as practice goes on. In fact, Marty, the key practice session, in my opinion, is going to be our second one, which starts probably about 7 o'clock. Actually, it's going to end about the same time the race is going to start. So the next practice session, in my opinion, guys, is going to be the most important one.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rusty. And then going back to Austin Dillon, I mean, think about this young man coming out of the Truck Series last year, winning a championship, and is on the verge with the possibility of winning a Nationwide championship in back-to-back seasons.
You're looking at Cole Witt. You heard earlier from Dave Burns. Still not sure what his future is for 2013. You see that right now his best lap puts him 12th, as we have a total of 4 cars out on the track right now. And do you like the strategy by Elliott Sadler? Just sort of sit back and let somebody else lay some rubber down before you go out?
Well, I kind of do, Marty, for the main reason is that they have a certain amount of tires they can use in this series, since they really don't want to burn them all up in this first session because, like I said earlier, this track is going to change big time. In the second practice session today, is going to be the most important system. So you want your tires for that. Also, when the race starts, you want to have a good inventory sitting in the pit area, so when it comes race time, you can use those babies instead of burning them up right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very, very smart. Good management of the series as you're going throughout the weekend. You want to make sure you're dotting your I's, crossing your T's, give yourself every opportunity to get good quality laps in on the racetrack, and that's exactly what this is.
Now, Brad, one important thing, a lot of times if you're the first guy on the racetrack on a track that's not been run on a long time, it really gets abusive on the tires. It wears them out. So a lot of guys like to sit in the garage area and don't go out for a while. Let these cats practice for about 15 minutes, get a little rubber laid down on the track, and then the crew chiefs will send their driver out. And I got a feeling that's what they just did with Elliott Sadler.
Brad Keselowski, as he is now turning laps, and yes, Brad is going to do double duty this weekend, and that's another hot topic. Here you are leading the Cup Championship, and you're going out and running a nationwide race. Risk versus reward. What do you think?
Well, you got to think about it. There's no doubt about that, but there are some racetracks that's its benefit, and I really think that racing here at Charlotte in the nationwide race and in the Cup race, in the nationwide race to benefit the Cup race is a very important thing. I think Brad's going to get some good experience in this race that can help him in his Cup effort on Saturday night.
And you also got to remember, guys, there's contract and sponsor obligations that are met, during the first day of the season. You have to go out, and there's a certain number of races he has to run, and there's obligations.
Well, let's talk about guys who have won the championship in Sprint Cup. And how many nationwide starts did they take during their winning season? Now, Tony Stewart had the most back in 05. He had a total of 12, but look at the rest of them. 4 for Jimmy Johnson in 08, none for Jimmy in 2010 or 2009, and 2 for Tony Stewart in 11.
I'll tell you, that's a good point, Marty. You look at Jimmy Johnson, all the numbers he racked up there, all those championships. I've talked to Jimmy several times about racing a nationwide series. He said, Rusty, I cannot run the nationwide series because the engines have so much less horsepower. It's a momentum style of driving that you got to do, and I'm not good at that style of driving. I like a lot of horsepower where I bomb that baby down in a corner, I get on the brakes, I pick the throttle back up, and the nationwide cars are totally different what I'm accustomed to. For me, it doesn't help me, he told me.
Yeah, the thing I've learned, I've talked to Brad Keselowski and those guys about it, they say that they like to go out and utilize as an opportunity to get a good feel for the track. I know exactly what you're saying, Rusty, as far as Jimmy and Tony, those guys, but Brad says he likes going out, trying to look at the conditions of the track and try to file that away as he goes forward.
And that worked for Carl Edwards also, Brad,
yeah,
what you just said.
Yeah.
But no championship for Carl.
That's true. Awful close, though.
And then this year, he's not running nationwide on a regular basis. Did one race at Watkins Glen and didn't even make the chase this year.
Yeah.
So here's Denny Hamlin. He's another one of our double duty drivers. And yes, that is pink. It's for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Dollar General is supporting the effort. Jamie Little, you've got more.
And Denny Hamlin sits 3rd in the Sprint Cup Series standings. This is one of 2 remaining nationwide races for him. Now, it's interesting what Rusty was talking about, the total different feel between the cars. Well, I talked to the crew chief for Denny Hamlin before the start of this practice, and he told me they were trying something new, a different setup here. Well, Denny went out one run, and he said, I don't like it. It feels harsh. So what we're doing, we're going to change it more to my Cup Series setup so the car feels a little more similar, if that's possible. Right, Rusty?
Well, I agree with you, Jamie. I mean, anything you can benefit from one car to another is going to be great. So if he makes a change in his nationwide car and he feels like that change can benefit the Cup car, then it's a gainer. But it is controversial what we've been talking about, because some drivers feel like driving in the nationwide series hurts them, and some feels like it helps them. You mentioned that single win that Carl Edwards had this year at Watkins Glen. I talked to Carl. He's had such a bad year this year, but Brad, when he won that race, it jacked him up sky high. He was pumped up, and he says, man, I want to go back in the nationwide series.
Yeah, he let him know that he didn't forget how to do it.
Yeah.
And it does build confidence running in the nationwide series, especially when you have great equipment, great people working around you. It leads to great results.
Well, Denny Hamlin's still looking for his first win in the Nationwide Series in 2012. He's finished second 3 times at Richmond, Darlington, and at Charlotte. And you can see the number of starts that he's had. He sat on the pole once. 7 top 10s, 5 of those, or 6 of those in the top 5. Let's talk about the rivalry we have on the track between the 3, the 2, and the 6.
Yes.
We got a great championship.
Well, I can tell you one thing right now, the 3 car, it's fastest in practice with Austin Dillon. He is trying to run these guys down and win this championship, his first championship. He's an awful young fellow. But I'll tell you what, Richard Childress owns this car, and Brad, you and I talked earlier about how much effort he's putting into it.
What do you think he's trying to accomplish, Rusty, in these first few runs? I mean, he was first car on the track, obviously, but he's laying down a lot of laps, good pace. What's he trying to accomplish right now?
Right now, he's just trying to make sure that the car is doing what he wants it to do, and knowing in the back of his mind, the second practice session is the money session. This is the one he really wants to focus on. But he's learning a lot of stuff right now, and he had some comments a little while ago. Let's take a listen.
To the center, corners 3 and 4, I get a dead push. 1 and 2 was good. I still hit the splitter though. Just takes off in the center corner 3 and 4.
Now this is a point. He's talking about the handling of the car, and right now, you got to get it as close as you possibly can. But the car will change from this practice session to the second practice session, and as the race starts at night and goes into the darkness, it's going to change again. That's where you got to understand the changes you need to make, and you don't need to overreact too much to what the car is doing right now.
Richard Childress on the left, talking with Max Pappas, who is serving as a coach for Austin. And let's get more from Jamie Little.
Yeah, you see them talking there together. Meanwhile, I'm listening to Austin on the radio, and he's saying that he's just in the track. He's rubbing the splitter, and you're hearing that a lot from these drivers down here, of course, trying to get their ride heights correct, but they don't want to out-adjust themselves. So right now, he's pretty okay with the car. He said in 1 and 2 were awesome. 3 and 4, not so much. So they're going to continue working on this car. And remember, it's just his second start at this racetrack, so they, of course, want to get the most laps possible.
And he finished 11th here back in May. It was his worst mile-and-a-half finish this year on the mile-and-a-half tracks. Let's talk more about turns 1 and 2 versus 3 and 4. Why is there such a big difference?
Well, Marty, right now as practice is going on, I'm looking out of our booth right here, and turn 1 and 2 is pretty well shaded. It's got a lot of shade on it from the condominiums that are here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. The track has got, it's much cooler down in turn 1 and 2 versus 3 and 4. 3 and 4 right now sitting in all the sunlight, and plus it's a different shape corner. As you come down this tri-oval style racetrack, you really carry a lot of speed into turn 1, which makes the entry of turn 1 a little easier than turn 3 and 4. So turn 3 and 4 is always the corner that everybody's always trying to get hooked up in, just because of the entry and the way it's designed.
Good explanation. 7th on the board right now is Brad Keselowski. Dave Burns is caught up with him.
He was just discussing with teammate Sam Hornish their situation. Sam hasn't really been on the track except for 1 lap. His car was bottoming out in the rear just a little bit. You've been out for 5 time laps, Brad. How is your race car?
That seems to be okay. It looks like we need just a little bit more speed to keep up with the 18 car. It looks to be the best, but we're working on it with the discount tire Dodge. I haven't drove this car in a little while, so it took me a couple laps to get back up to speed, so to speak. But you know, we ran really well in this car last 2 times I've been in. I'm excited to be back in the Nationwide Series.
With that in mind and going for the championship on the Cup side, what value is it to you to run here in the Nationwide Series?
Well, you know, it's funny you say that. I was just talking with somebody here in the garage, and you know, the value comes from all different areas, and you're just never sure which one it's going to be. You know, it could come from actually driving the car, or I could learn absolutely nothing from driving the car and just learn something about, you know, my competitors or even myself and what I need to be better. So there's always something to be learned.
Thoughts for the Sprint Cup Championship leader, Brad Keselowski. Marty?
His last start for the Nationwide Series was back at Chicago, second Chicago, just a few weeks ago. He finished 4th in that race. He said it took him a few laps to get accustomed to it. Maybe this is one of the examples why.
Oh, yeah, you get down in turn 3, it looks like there, no back of the car is just kicking out, it's slipping and sliding, it's not hooked up at all. So this is where he says, hey, it's not right, I'm coming back in probably.
Kick the old adrenaline in first thing in practice. Yeah, that's my job.
That's my job. And love Brad on the radio. And there he is, still looking things over.
You know, you see it a lot. You heard Austin Dillon talking about it as well, as they try to adjust to the air pressures and get their car handling like Rusty said. You know, they touch that splitter. And I've heard a lot of guys, a lot of the really high-end, great race car drivers, people like Jimmy Johnson say, if you get on that splitter, it feels like it's lifting the front wheel tires off the ground. So it takes a lot of time to get up to speed.
And don't forget, as we look at Ricky Stenhouse Jr., it was Brad Keselowski who won back here in the May race on fuel mileage.
Hey, Brad, you talk about that splitter. Take a look at Ricky Stenhouse front end on this number 6 car. It's laying right on the ground.
There. Yeah. He can get up to speed.
Oh, he can.
He's fast.
He can that baby going fast. And look, you and I know, I mean, just explain it to the fans at home, the lower that splitter is to the ground,
the faster you go.
The faster you go, baby.
Yeah.
If that baby's up in the air, that car is going to slow down. You don't want that. He's got that left front corner right down there. That's where speed is. You got to have that.
Well, of course, he has won 4 times on the mile-and-a-half, although last time out, last couple of races, in fact, haven't been the kind of finishes that he's really wanted. But as you can see, on the mile-and-a-half tracks, his worst finish was here in May when he came home 26th, 17th at Kentucky. But look at those 4 times that he won. Back here at first practice for the NASCAR Nationwide Series, you see that our coverage starts with NASCAR Countdown at 7 o'clock Eastern tomorrow night on ESPN. Here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway, you see the finish line painted pink, that, like many of the cars, in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And there's Danica Patrick's pink number 7. GoDaddy.com getting on board with the pink theme. And let's check in with Dave Burns.
And Marty, if Arrow will pan down just a little bit, I want you to look lower left behind the exhaust pipes there. Yeah, just a little scrape on the side skirt. And the reason I pointed it out, it's an interesting phenomenon down here right now. Some of that is burned up, but she also mentioned that she was scraping the side skirts, not hitting the splitter, which we so often hear with cars in this track. And that's the second one that said that. Remember I mentioned Sam Hornish, the back end of it was kind of punching down and hitting the track, and he mentioned the side skirts as well. So I don't know if it's a tuning thing they're doing right now with the Nationwide cars that puts the rear end of the car a lot closer and the tolerances a lot closer to the track.
Well, the transitions, Dave, here at this particular speedway cause the cars to really travel a lot, rather than a place like, you know, a Kansas City or a smooth racetrack like a, you know, a flatter racetrack. These things, this track here's got so much banking, it forces a lot of body roll and a lot of travel. So you will see the skirts hit here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Remember, the skirts, much like the splitter, the lower you get them to the ground without touching, the faster the car is going to go and the better it's going to handle.
Well, we've got a red flag situation. Everybody in as the number 10 car, Charles Lewandowski, brought out the red flag and brought everybody in. We'll go back and show you. See the right rear corner of the car. You'll see exactly what happened. This was his first lap.
Woo, boy, he got in there a little bit hot, and those hot radial tires weren't hot, is what I'm trying to say, Rusty. And we've seen that happen to a lot of the young guys as they come into the corner. Just lost it, bumped the rear end, but I think he'll be okay.
That's pretty free there. I think I clipped the right rear, but check it out here.
Yeah, he was free, all right. He was definitely free.
and he's correct. He did clip the right rear.
He did. He's got it all diagnosed very well. So young man will go in and put him 4 fresh Goodyears on there and fix that right rear, and we'll do it again.
Well, let's talk about Charlotte Motor Speedway since 2000. And turns 2 and 4, by far and away, have the more crashes.
And it's very easy to explain why. As you exit turn 4, you're on the banking, and when you come on the straightaway, the banking just completely falls off to almost nothing. And when you have no banking, right where those white lines, those dashed lines in, that's where the banking kind of falls off. And at that particular point is where you get really, really loose and you spin.
You know what, Rusty? You do know what you're talking about. But I do have a theory.
What is it?
You know why there's all those crashes in turn 4?
Tell me.
Because they're trying to get back to that checkered flag.
Oh, that's a pretty good point, Brad. I like that.
Pretty good, isn't it? Yeah. I didn't sleep in all those classes.
Let's check in with Jamie Little.
Well, Marty, when Dave was talking to Brad Keselowski, Brad mentioned that they need to get a little bit quicker to compete with the 18. Well, Denny Hamlin isn't too happy with this 18 so far.
The front is not driving very good. It has better speed down the straightaway, but it's just driving horrible.
He went on to use words like driving crappy and feels horrible, and said the front end is driving like it doesn't know where to go. What exactly is he feeling, do you think there, Rusty?
He's just flat feeling a bad feeling race car. He's probably experiencing a splitter hitting the ground. They're probably trying to get real aggressive on their front shock absorbers to keep the front of the car down. It could be sway bars. It could be many, many things, Jamie, but obviously he doesn't like it. And they've got a really good notebook back at Joe Gibbs Racing about what this track needs and what they've used in the past, and they'll bring that back out and make some changes.
Well, I'm surprised he's complaining as much as he is, because he's 3rd fastest on the board, and his last lap was actually quicker than Austin Dillon's last lap. And he's right in the mix.
Well, Marty, what happens there? Those are single lap runs. That's when you just go out there and you run fast and you lay a big number up, and all of a sudden the next lap, Brad, the car goes all over the place, and you know you can't race it like that.
Well, but he also had the best 5-lap average, guys. He's atop the board there at 179 and change.
But it's still, Marty, it's still way too early. We're talking about the track being green, and that is only 5 laps that we're looking at.
Yeah, they're not putting down the speeds that they're going to put down later on today. They're still filling this thing out.
That's right.
Elliott Sadler 11th on the board. I'm just trying to get you guys going. And look at the difference in this front splitter from what you saw on the 6 car.
Well, that's a veteran. That's an old veteran race car driver. And Elliott Sadler has been around this ring several times. Knows what he wants. Had some great qualifying efforts in the Cup car. So he knows what he needs out of his race car. So he'll go out and get it pretty early.
Well, he's 11th on the board right now. Let's just go along for a lap.
Yeah, I'd like to just kind of drive along with him a little bit here to kind of point out a couple things. He's coming off at turn 2 right now, heading down the back straightaway. You'll see the banky coming up at you where the car really sets in the corner real hard. Now, what I want to talk about is the exit of turn 4, what he's getting ready to do right now. And watch how dramatic the track falls off, right? There.
Oh, wow.
It just falls down.
Yeah, the camera doesn't do it justice. It's incredible.
It's incredible. That's where you lose the downforce, and that's the reason there's so many crashes off of turn 4. Now let's do the same thing off of turn 2. Follow along here. He's getting out of the throttle, it sounds like. But it falls off right there, but not as much as turn 4.
So you don't think it's my theory about going to the pay window that causes all them?
Well, I think you want to get to the start-finish line quick, but I think this is a product of the spins,
I
too.
like yours better.
Okay.
And you just had the Rusty Wallace ride-along program.
And, hey, I've hit the wall there, too.
All right, so there's Elliott as he's bringing his number 2 back into the garage area. They'll make some more adjustments. He did not improve. Well, yes, he did. He moved up 1 spot into the 10th position, but he's got a bit of a ground to make up to catch up to Austin Dillon, who has turned a total of 14 laps now. And you see his best lap there at 29.94. His last lap, a 30.32 on the same set of tires.
Now, that's the key thing we need to look at. His teammate, Elliott Sadler, just went out and ran a 30.20. And even though Austin is the very fastest and Elliott's 10th right now, Austin's last time was a 30.30. So actually his teammate, Elliott Sadler, is a 10th of a second faster than him. And this is where you want to be fast. Right now, when you're out there and the tire's a little bit older and the car's handling good on the older tires, those new tires cover up a multitude of
everybody's
problems.
fast.
Yeah,
everybody's fast.
That's right.
Well, Austin Dillon, of course, has a couple of wins on the 1.5 miles, both of them at Kentucky. In fact, thought about nicknaming him Austin. Kentucky is my middle name, Dillon. He owned the track this year. All right, in case you missed it, we're going to do this again for you because we have got a full schedule. In fact, just remember, keep your dial on ESPN2 the rest of the day because we've got Sprint Cup practice next. That's right, we do. And then NASCAR Now at 5:30. Then at 6, Nationwide Series final practice. And then Sprint Cup qualifying at 7 o'clock Eastern. Then tomorrow, well, then we'll have Nationwide qualifying at 4 Eastern. And NASCAR Now at 5 Eastern, presented by Wrangler. And then Cup final practice at 5:30 Eastern. Those 3 on ESPN2, but then switch over to ESPN 7 o'clock for Countdown. It's the Nationwide Series presented by GoDaddy on ESPN Saturday night. And then, or Friday night, then Saturday night, it is at 7 Eastern, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Bank of America 500 on ABC. So as the championship contenders are back in the garage area, let's check in on the young rookie, Ryan Blaney. This week he is in the 36 car, guys.
Tell you what, he got a heck of a break. He ran so good the first race at Richmond, Virginia, that it really opened a lot of owners' eyeballs up, including Roger Penske. And Roger put him in that number 22 car for some races so far this year. But he did such a good job out there. Really impressed everybody, Brad.
He's done a great job. The young man's got a lot of talent. Saw Ryan this morning in the motorhome lot and talked to him a little bit. And you're absolutely right. He had some great runs early on, and it's opened up a lot of opportunities for him, in particular Roger Penske. Now he's got to start getting better every week because he does have this opportunity. Got to take advantage of it.
Let's go back to 2006 and show you Ryan Blaney's dad. Here's Dave Blaney, and this is a last lap pass as he is going to take the win here at Charlotte.
Man, was that Matt Kenseth right there spinning that 17 car?
Yes, it was.
Whoa. Hey, Dave, he stood on the throttle on the outside of that track, won that race here in Charlotte.
And Matt still managed to cross the finish line.
So Denny Hamlin spinning out the bottom of the track. Great win for Dave right there. Really cool.
And we mentioned it was a last lap pass. There have been a few. And Bobby Allison over Darrell Waltrip. Anytime you can get Dick Trickle into a broadcast, it's a great day.
That's right. That is exactly right.
So DJ gets the honor there, and then Michael Waltrip, and of course we just showed you Dave Blaney over Matt Kenseth.
Well, like I said, young man's got a lot of talent, and we're expecting big things out of him going forward in this nationwide series. So looking forward to watching his growth.
Well, take a look. He's had 9 starts, 5 of those in the top 10. His best finish was 7th back at Richmond and Bristol. His last start at Dover, he came home in 13th position.
Yeah, I tell you, those are great numbers for this young guy. I mean, those young drivers that died have numbers like that. I mean, I'll never forget him being up in the hunt all night long at Richmond, Virginia.
Keep throwing him down.
And at Bristol.
To get to the bottom at 3 and 4, just stops right dead center.
And don't forget, he won at your track
out
of Iowa in the
truck
trucks.
race. That's right.
I'll tell you what. That's good.
That's right.
Okay, guess what? We got a new fast lap. Driver of the 33, Kevin Harvick, one of our 15 double-duty drivers. Kevin has turned a total 8 laps, and he just laid it down on that 8th lap, 29.75 seconds by 0.2 of a second. And he's up over 181 miles an hour.
Yeah, this doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, Kevin knows how to get around this racetrack. We see Paul Menard in this car a lot this year, and they're swapping back and forth. The 33 number's been Kevin's number for a good while in the Nationwide Series. And, yeah, for him to be P1 right now, Brad, that doesn't surprise me.
No, not at all. No. Kevin's a veteran of this series. Obviously, he's won a ton of races, knows what he needs from his race car, just like all the other veteran guys who come down and race in this series. This guy's a threat every time.
And we've got another caution out on the track. We're scouting around. Don't see anybody in the wall. Looking out to the right down in turn number 1. They got the lights on down there. And, we got a stop car there at the end of
still
pit
be
road.
cleaning up from Talladega last week.
It's stalled on pit stalled on pit road. That's the word we're getting from NASCAR. And again, another pink car. We've got a multitude of pink cars. In fact, listen to Cole Witt's radio.
All right, 10-4. I'll find out which pink car you are this week. There are way too many pink cars.
Yeah, we're the one that's got the yellow and the blue, kind of like an Easter egg.
Yeah.
All right, let's go down to Dave.
Marty, we've caught up with the driver of the Easter egg right now. That was back in, I don't know, March or April or something like that. But helping the spotters is kind of key here. Tell us about your race car. What's it been like so far, Cole?
Yeah, I mean, going back to what we were just talking about, I mean, we had TJ up there, he was spotting the wrong pink car. So there's so many pink cars, we had to kind of declassify. But it's pretty cool to have Hellman's on board with us in Dollar General and going for breast cancer awareness. It's pretty cool. So, but as far as the car, we're doing pretty good. I wish we had a little more speed, but we're not really focused on the speed right now, just because how much different the track will be. It's a lot hotter daylight right now. We're gonna race tonight, so we're just kind of focusing, trying a few little things, and if we can get them worked out, we'll see if we can make them faster in the final practice.
Crew Chief Bruce was telling me this morning, doing something a little different for you. How does a car drive differently or feel differently for you? It took you a couple laps to get used to it, and then he said the times were very consistent.
Yeah, I mean, we probably didn't rip off that lap like everybody else did, and we've done more laps than most cars here. We're going kind of on longer runs and working on race setups, and I mean, we're here to win races, so that's what we're working on.
And does it feel different in some way, entry or exit of the corner?
Yeah, I mean, they're all a little bit different, but a lot of it has to do with how the tracks are. It's so different from places where you test, and then you come here and it's so different. But as far as a driver, it's small stuff, and I mean, you're out here fighting for a tenth or two. It's so big.
Thank you, Cole. Cole in the 88 pink car. Marty?
Yeah, and for us, we're just going to, when we're in doubt, we're just going to say, it's the pink car.
I'm telling you what, me and Brad are going to be listening to you guys tomorrow night. Call this race from up here in the booth, and you're going to be confused. If you're not, it'll surprise me. There's so many doggone pink cars out here. It's crazy.
Justin Allgaier has pink. The 18, of course, is pink. His teammate, the 11, also pink. There's the pink number 7, Danica Patrick.
Hey, Brad, we can wear a pink tie tomorrow night?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
A good looking deal.
Well, so maybe purple's
better
close,
looking deal.
Purple close enough?
Close.
Okay, good. I don't know if we got any pink ties, but we'll have something on for NASCAR Countdown tomorrow night. Starts live at 7 o'clock. We'll see what we're wearing.
Absolutely.
All right, let's ride along with Danica, see if you can pick out anything. She's right now 12th on the board.
Let's listen to her throttle. That's number 1. Out of the throttle, back into it. That's a pretty good job. Wasn't out much. See what happens when she gets down to turn 3 here. So you don't want to go out of the throttle, back in the throttle, out of the throttle, and back in. You like to commit to it one time and hold it. So she's not handling exactly like she wants it. But I'll tell you, this car sounds pretty good to me, though.
30.48 on that last lap.
It's 12th quick. That's not a bad lap for Danica.
Her fastest lap was a 30.25, and the comparison between the two through 28 races this year, and you can see that Danica only had the 2 top 10s compared to 12 for Cole, and the average finish 6 places better for Cole Winn. Stay with us, still more practice. All right, we're here in first practice in the Nationwide Series. Let's head back down to the garage area. Dave Burns.
Marty, Casey Kane has made his way over to the 38 car that Brad Sweet is driving this weekend. So, Brad, they're slinging a lot of parts right now. What are they trying to make your car do better?
We're trying a few different things here with the front end, but you know, the car, Great Clips Chevy's been fast so far. We were on the splitter a little too hard when we first started. We got it off. We ran some decent lap times, and we just wanted to run through a few other things just to make sure that we're on the right path.
Casey, you know Brad very well. You know his tendencies behind the wheel. What do you find is most helpful to tell him or to offer when you come over?
Well, I drove this car here at the first race at Charlotte this year, so I remember how it felt and then some of the characteristics. So just trying to go through some of that, helping with the splitter, and just little things that, you know, sometimes might click. When I've had people help me in the past, you know, sometimes things click and sometimes things don't. But I like this team and Great Clips and everybody that's part of it. So just try to help out if I can. And Brad's doing a good job. It takes time to figure these cars out, and he's learning.
Additional data from the guys who drive them. You can always use more of that, Marty.
All right, thank you very much, David. As several cars back out on the track, as Brad Sweet continues to look at the work being done back in the garage area. You notice the Nationwide band across the top of the windshield? Found out we will not be incorrect when we say all cars are pink. Because
this is true.
Every one of those cars has that pink Nationwide band across the windshield. So you look at the number 12 of the pink Sam Hornish Jr.
You know, just trying to figure out for Sam. Saw him last week at the racetrack, talked a little bit, you know, just where his head is at. I mean, he's been through so much this season. And, you know, the one thing, Rusty, you know better than we do about a race car driver is confidence. And I've been really impressed with how Sam, who's been in the Nationwide car, in the Cup car, back and forth, has handled himself. He's been very composed. He's done a great job in both series. And I tell you, I just wonder really what's going on in his head, knowing he's not going to have that opportunity to run that Cup car full time next year.
I'll tell you what I'd be thinking.
What's that?
I'd be thinking, what else do I got to do to impress somebody?
I know it. He's done it all.
He's getting the job done. He speaks well. He really represents his sponsor well. I was very, very disappointed that he wasn't back in the 22 Cup car next year.
Really surprising. And obviously we're going to the next guy, Joey Logano here, who will be replacing Sam, Joey's been outstanding in this series this year. Just when he lines it up and lights it up, he's the guy to beat. But just interesting about that whole situation with Sam.
Well, I talked to the team, and they told me that it was basically sponsorship driven, that they liked Sam, they liked Casey, but they just wanted somebody a little bit younger, and that was it.
You mentioned Logano's performance. Look at these numbers. A 41.2 winning percentage, 7 out of 17. I mean, there are major league batters that, well, Ted Williams was the last 400 hitter. He's batting .412.
I got a fantasy league team, and this is the first pick, and I'm taking this guy because he is the man. He has had an outstanding season. He's got a lot of confidence in this Nationwide car. These JGR cars have been at the top of the pile for quite a while, and he just continues to dominate whenever he gets in this 20 car.
You hit the nail on the head right there, Brad. These JGR cars, man, whether it was the old style Nationwide car or this new one they're running right now, they got something figured out, because it seems like no matter who they put in these cars, these things always run good. And I'll tell you, Kyle Busch, he won everything in these cars.
Yeah.
Now he's in his own car, not winning near as much, trying to figure it out.
Shows you something.
He knows how good those cars were.
And I wanted to throw this point out. Back when we were watching Kyle win in the JGR cars, did we not give the crew, the car, and everybody on that side of the equation enough credit?
I think it's pretty obvious now. We didn't probably give him enough credit. I mean, obviously, Kyle Busch is a tremendously talented race car driver, but boy, when he, along with the combination of his talent and those pieces that they have at JGR, that's a lethal combination. And we're seeing Joey Logano do the same thing that Kyle Busch was doing.
Well, and Kyle Busch is in jeopardy of a streak being snapped. It's one of the few records he does not hold in the Nationwide Series. He has had a win in 8 consecutive seasons. He needs 1 this year to tie Mark Martin with 9 straight years, and he is winless in 17 starts, while Joey Logano has 7 wins in 17 starts.
Well, Marty, he could turn that around. I'm talking about Kyle Busch right here in Charlotte tomorrow night. He's 5th fastest in practice right now. His car looks like it's got the speed, and they have got this car running faster and faster as the year goes on. This was a brand new team, new equipment, new chassis, new engine combinations, everything. And we really expected a lot more out of him, but they are getting much, much better. Dave, I don't know if you're noticing the same thing, but week after week, it looks like it get better to me.
Rusty, you make the right point. When they came here in May, they ran 3rd, but they were still learning about themselves, learning about these race cars, learning what they needed to do to be competitive for wins here in this series. So when I talked to Mike Beam this morning about their agenda today and their agenda the rest of the year, he said, yeah, we want to get that W for Kyle, and we feel like we could much more possibly do it this weekend than we could in May. And also, every time Kyle gets in the car, he's evaluating. You know, he's saying, what more does this company need, even at this point in the season? So I think it's safe to say they've learned a lot, and they expect that Kyle may be able to go to victory lane this weekend at Charlotte.
I tell you, I totally agree with you, Dave. There's no doubt about that. But Mike Beam, right there, the guy we're looking at, the crew chief, he's really a smart fella. He orchestrated a lot of the wins for Carl Edwards with that Ford with Jack Roush Racing. He moved over here with Kyle Busch and has really done a good job. But I tell you one thing, all those guys standing in front of that car, they better get working harder. They're kind of hanging around not doing much work there, Brad.
You don't like seeing anybody standing around.
Oh, man, I don't like it. Look at them. They're looking lazy to me.
I'm sure that they're going to come talk to you when they hear you.
No, they better stand up and get working, man.
All right, let's check in with Jamie Little. She's caught up with Austin Dillon.
Well, another working man down here in the garage. Turned 20 laps. You're 2nd on the board right now. How does this time around at Charlotte compare to the first time that was your first start here?
You know, it's starting to get back because there's sun over there in 3 and 4. 1 and 2 is shaded, so I think that's the only thing you can compare off for our race. And, you know, our car's turning really good through 1 and 2. 3 and 4, I'm tight, and that's where I want to be, because as the shade comes down and as it gets dark and cools down, the track's just going to grip up, and if you keep freeing your stuff up for 3 and 4, it's going to be no good in the race. So I think we're going to park it after this qualifying run, because our qualifying is about this time tomorrow. So hopefully we can put them back on top of the charts and take us past Pro Shop Chevy and do a little practicing tonight.
All right, sounds good. Austin Dillon, one more run. He will do a mock qualifying run. You're not hearing that from many drivers down here, guys.
Well, and interesting that they are looking at the clock for tomorrow and realizing, hey, we can do a mock run at the same time that we're going to be out there tomorrow. So maybe they learn a little bit more. Maybe that's that little bit of an advantage that they need to maybe take the pole position. We'll find out, of course, tomorrow, because we'll be carrying qualifying here on ESPN2. Here are the top 10 speeds. Kevin Harvick is your fastest. He's run just 9 laps. And Austin Dillon in the 2nd spot. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has parked it for this session with only 7 laps in the books. They must feel very good about their race car. On down through Brian Scott, rounding out the top 10. Stay with us. We've still got a lot more. And there's Ricky Stenhouse Jr. as, like we said, he's enjoying a drink and taking life easy. Time is beginning to wind down here in the first practice session. Final practice will be a bit later this afternoon. Our race coverage is Friday at 7 Eastern over on ESPN. Right now, fastest on the board is Kevin Harvick. He's in the garage area, but let's check in right now with Jamie Little.
Well, as we reported, Denny Hamlin wasn't happy with the car early on. Went to hit more like your Cup setup, but that didn't seem to work either. What was going on here at the finish of this practice for you?
Yeah, the two just drive so differently that you know, you try to make them drive a little bit more similar, and they just you really can't do it. So we went back with what we had and what we started practice with, and which had good speed, and it picked kind of back up where it was. So we're excited about that. Matt and the guys are really working on this Dollar General Toyota. Hopefully we have been or going to be more competitive than what we've been these last few nationwide races. We definitely haven't been stout as what like Joey has been in our cars, and so we're trying to work towards that, and hopefully we'll have a car we can win with.
Now you have a lot on your plate on the Cup side. 3rd in points. You're getting ready for practice coming up next after this. What benefit is it for you to run this car this weekend?
I don't know about the benefit. I mean, like I said, they drive so differently that I don't know that there really is a benefit for myself. Some drivers, I think, it helps with, getting used to the track, things like that. But for me, I mean, I'm able to go in my Cup car just as hard as I can go right off the bat. You know, really nothing translates over from this side at the moment. So you kind of treat the two races as independent as you can right now.
All right, thanks for your time, Denny. He's going to get over to the Cup Garage, and we're going to go over to Dave Burns.
And as we were talking about the Joe Gibbs Racing teammates, we overheard some interesting radio from the other driver, Joey Logano. Listen.
Better, worse, no change. Mucho better. Somebody run down there and tell Brad thanks for those shocks.
Now what you're hearing, just a little friendly rivalry between the shock builders. Now I'm going to show you Joel Weidman here for the 20 team. He has his back to us. He's been laughing about it and saying, you're not going to play that radio on TV, are you? Well, Brad Rothland on Denny's team had an idea, and Joel got to see all the data, and he kind of followed the idea, and it worked out really well for them. So a little friendly competition down here, and right now the 18 team kind of has the upper hand on maybe best idea for shocks this weekend.
All right, thank you, David. As the clock continues to wind down, you're on board with Joey right there. And Logano, 7th quickest right now. His best lap was back on lap number 3 at a 30.10 second elapsed time. His last one was 30.59. And back out on track, the number 12, Sam Hornish Jr. We were talking about splitters earlier. Let's check in on how low can the 12 go.
Really trying to get that splitter down, as we've heard Rusty talk about it a lot, about trying to get that splitter as close to the racetrack as you possibly can. You want to get that nose sprung where it'll hold that position and it doesn't allow it to bounce up and down too much. Like we said, we don't want that splitter touching the racetrack, but boy, you want it almost just shaving some of the edge of that splitter off, getting it out of the air. Well, if you look at the two cars here, Marty, guys, you'll see the 2 and the 6. The differences here are everything. When you're talking about getting that nose down, the reason why it's so important, as the air flows under the nose of that race car, it almost creates drag on the oil pan. So the less air you can have going under that race car, just like the 6 car on the bottom, Ricky Stenhouse, the less drag on the bottom of that race car. You see the 2 car, there's a lot of wind blowing under there, and it hits that oil pan, and it creates drag. It slows the race car down.
Yeah, another thing it does also, Brad, is that if the lower that nose is, the more downforce it's going to create on the front of the car. So you got to get the car as low as you possibly can to get that downforce you want. And you can see it looked like Ricky Stenhouse's team was doing a better job managing that than Elliott Sadler's team at this point of practice.
Yeah.
Stenhouse 3rd on the speed charts. Elliott Sadler in the 6th position.
Downforce versus drag. You want the downforce, you don't want the drag.
If you got to get out of the throttle to make the corner,
that's right,
you want the downforce. If you can hold that car wide open all around the corner, then you got the proper amount of downforce.
Yeah.
But when I hear him cracking that throttle, it's all about handling. Give me that downforce, baby. That's what I want.
That's the 10th lap turn by Sam Hornish Jr. in this practice session. He is still in the 11th.
Man, I tell you, look at that front end, Brad. It's still high.
And I've always noticed that, even at the mile-and-a-half tracks, at Kentucky and places like that, it seems like the 2 car, really, when he loads that throttle up, it seems like it picks that nose up, and he's always driven the car with a little higher than everyone else.
That is just much higher than it needs to be right now.
Elliott Sadler is going to be our in-race reporter. All you have to do is go to ESPN.com. Keyword is in-race reporter, or you can tweet your question to @NASCAR ESPN. Then tune into the race tomorrow, 7 Eastern, on ESPN to see if it's your question that DJ asks during our broadcast. We're going to step aside for just a few moments as this first practice session is beginning to wind down, but don't go anywhere because Cup practice is going to follow. Back here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, Luke Lambert, crew chief for Elliott Sadler, leaning in, talking to his driver as this practice continues to wind down. Sadler right now shown in the 6th spot. All 3 Richard Childress Racing machines. Kevin Harvick number 1, Austin Dillon number 2, Elliott Sadler number 6 on the speed charts. Any advantage for those 3 ganging up on Ricky Stenhouse Jr.?
Well, I think being able to share the information is the biggest thing, because Ricky Stenhouse Jr. doesn't have a partner, so to speak, in camp. So being able to go back and forth and share information, just like you see Elliott doing here with Luke Lambert, I think is vital and key to helping them be more successful this weekend, Rusty.
No, I totally agree with that. I mean, the more information you can get right now, the better, because look, this year's winding down.
Yeah.
All these guys are thinking about who's going to win the championship. Is it going to be, you know, Ricky Stenhouse or Austin Dillon, or is it going to be Elliott Sadler? Who's it going to be? And they want to beat each other real bad, so they're very, very focused right now.
That conversation continues, so we'll swing back out onto the track, pick up some of the cars that are still running here late in this first practice session. The 87 of Joe Nemechek, Joe coming off a 17th place finish at Dover last week. His best run about 4 races ago at Richmond when he came home 8th.
Joe does such a great job, you know, a veteran of the series, obviously a past champion, and has run really well at times throughout the season. Obviously underfunded race team Joe has, but boy, he is a true racer at heart. Loves to talk about racing. Got a few guys that work for him full time, that's all. But boy, he loves to race, and I'm glad to see him show up every weekend and go hard.
Hey, well, he's working hard. He's running this Nationwide car. He's running the Cup car. You see his numbers right there, 32 starts. Got 1 win here.
That was back in 1997 in the May race.
Yeah, he's done a good job here at this racetrack. Got some new sponsors on the car, I see. And I tell you, sponsors are everything in the world right now. Joe's been good at going out there getting different ones every week, but at least getting them.
That's exactly right.
So as Joe comes in, we'll switch our coverage over to the 38 of Brad Sweet. We talked to him a little bit earlier, some of the changes that they were making on the car. He is 12th right now on the speed charts. His best lap, a 30.20 second elapsed time.
This is a young man that have a lot of expectations for. Raced for Casey Kane in the sprint cars, and Casey thinks a ton of him, and a lot of talent. I think he lost a little bit of confidence early on, but seems to be gaining some of that back. Dave, you got something for us?
Sorry, we were just down here talking about Michael's early practice experience down here. Tell me what happened when you first went out today.
Yeah, I hauled her off into 3 like we always do, knowing the first couple laps is when you get, you gotta get your spot on the board, and that's where you're gonna stay the whole practice. So, we started where we ended here last time, drove off into 3, and coming off 4, just felt like somebody took a water gun and shot underneath the rear tires, and I thought it was just, the car, or we missed something, and our buddies on the 6 said, it was water, and then we heard the 22 thought there was oil on the track, so never really got a chance to get the heart to calm down that run to get a better lap on the board, and from there we had a little plan to help us next week at Kansas, so we never got a chance to really work on it, knowing that tonight's race conditions, those 50 minutes of practice, we're really going to go after it hard and do a normal practice session like we normally would.
Yep. Another one of the drivers looking toward tonight, but a little heart-stopping moment early on, Marty.
Yeah, he's 25th on the board right now, and as he said, they're going to work tonight on getting everything squared away. Here are his numbers, the first 14 and the last 14 races, and you can see a big jump for Michael Annett. 6 top 5s, an average finish of 8 and 0 in the DNF column.
He's been much, much better this year, really has. He's looking good out there. He's driving the car well. I think everybody's proud of what Michael's doing.
Well, he goes into the hauler, the 31, Justin Allgaier, another one of the pink mobiles. He is 10th right now. You see his best lap numbers right there. Coming off a 30th place finish at Dover last week is the kind of week he wanted to just forget.
Still dragging the exhaust a bit.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And the thing that's been impressive, though, about Justin is his tenacity. He continues to work extremely hard in this race program, trying to push it forward. This is a program that doesn't have a Cup affiliation, so they struggle sometimes because they don't come with all the simulation that the Roush Fenways or the Joe Gibbs Racing organization has. But the Turner Group has worked really hard at getting stronger each weekend, and he's been very, very aggressive. When we've seen him on the racetrack, he is like racing around a porcupine, man. He tries to take every inch that he can get. So the driver's giving him 100%.
I'll tell you what, he is very aggressive behind the wheel, sometimes too aggressive, and gets people talking about his driving style, which he takes it to the limit. There's no doubt about that.
I like it. I want a guy like that. That's what I want. Somebody's going to go get it. I want to pull him back instead of having to push him.
You mentioned a little while ago about the cars, how good they are and stuff like that. Steve Levitt is one of the main guys over there. Steve's an incredible car builder. He's got his own shop that works over there at Turner. Man, I'll tell you what, under the hood of those things are like masterpieces.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really beautiful cars.
Well, he may hold a record that he doesn't want to, because the news, of course, this past week that Montreal will not be on the nationwide schedule. So if that doesn't change down the road in years to come, he'll be known as the last winner at that track.
That's pretty cool.
Wow, that is cool.
James Buescher, 17th right now. You see his numbers as he too has a touch of pink.
His biggest win of his life was probably winning the Daytona race this year, kicking off the year.
Yeah.
And one Daytona, man. Whenever you can say I won Daytona, that's got a special ring that lasts for a long time.
Another young man's a very aggressive race car driver, hard-nosed racer. We've seen him have a lot of success in the Truck Series. He's come over to the Nationwide Series. I think he's gained a lot of respect for the guys he races around, but he doesn't give up an inch either. Another hard charger.
Dave Burns, you got more on the 30?
Well, I want to describe a situation for Rusty that he was fighting through earlier in practice. He radioed in a quarter of the way through the corner. It sort of overturns and gets loose on me. So when I back it up and sort of guard for that, then the car gets tight. What kind of fine line is that, Rusty?
Well, that is a fine line. A lot of times when you get at the corner and the car kind of tucks down on the right front corner, the right front corner gets a lot of grip feeling. That's what's called an overturning, where the back of the car is just kind of flopping around following the front wheels. And so what he does, he backs the corner up and gets back in the throttle and kind of guards it all through the corner. Look, in racing, you don't want to guard anything if you don't have to. So they got to go back to work in their car right now and tighten the car up, get a little bit tighter so the front of that car isn't so aggressive, Dave. That's the problem he's fighting.
Danica Patrick back out on track. She's turned a total of 18 laps. Her best was a 30.25 on lap number 4. Last lap, a 31.40 at 171. She's searching for speed, and she doesn't have to worry about any traffic right now. She's the only car on the track.
Tell you what, that baby there is pink as pink is. I mean, he's, you know, you mentioned all these pink cars. It's unreal. Let's turn the throttle real quick. Listen to this. Well, you know what, Brad? She's out of it more than she was earlier.
Really? What do you think the cause of that is?
She's either pushing the front end or loose. Either one, we know that. Her speeds are slowing up a little bit. She's went from 12th down to 14th in the pecking order right now.
Yeah. You know, when you talk about Danica, though, I think about Michael Annett. I think how he's gotten better and better as his season has gone on. He's got the experience. He's been in the series a couple of years. That's the same thing I see for her. I mean, I'd like to see her spend more time in this Nationwide Series and ply her craft, get better and better.
There's a lot of people that think she should spend another full season in Nationwide.
Without question.
But it's not going to happen because of the sponsor commitments from GoDaddy, and she'll be moving to Cup next year, and we'll find out what happens. And we just got word that this practice session has now come to an official close. And look, Austin's even bench racing on top of the hauler. It goes like this, and then when I draft up on him, then all of a sudden I slide out to the right, come back to the left, and man, it just shoots right through the corner.
Well, drivers talk with their hands, you know.
Yeah, that's how I knew what he was saying. There you go, and there's another one talking with his hands. And even Luke's talking with his hands. Now you got to drive this thing straight. All right, let's take a look at the top 10 speeds, because Kevin Harvick leads the way, and Richard Childress Racing has first, second, and Elliott Sadler in 7th. Brad Keselowski rounds out the top 10. Back here at Charlotte Motor Speedway, as the first practice session for the NASCAR Nationwide Series has come to an official close. And you can see where they ran in that session on the right-hand side of your screen. And there are the point differentials. Elliott Sadler, our points leader, by 9 over Ricky Stenhouse Jr., 25 over Austin Dillon. And Jamie has caught up with Elliott.
Well, he's 7th on the board at the end of this practice session. We were showing a split screen and the front end of your car and how much higher it was than the 6 car. Is that something you guys are going to work on before tonight's session?
I don't know. I might like it like that. You know,
it's a preference thing.
That's right. It's a preference thing. It depends whether it's actually on the straightaway or on the corner, too. Everybody runs such different setups, you know, these days. But our one main financial car was pretty decent. We need to make it a little bit better. But the sun's out now, too, so we don't really want to adjust to that. But this is such a personal race for me, you know, with my family, especially my mom had gone through her breast cancer. It's so cool to see all these pink cars lined up in the garage. I got to thank NASCAR and all the different teams in Charlotte Motor Speedway for turning it pink this weekend. So hopefully we'll have a great race. It'll be nothing like winning a pink trophy with my mom here tomorrow night. So we're going to work on this thing, make it a little better, and hopefully be good tonight when it counts.
All right, breast cancer awareness always on Elliott Sadler's mind every day of the year. Marty?
All right, thank you, Jamie. And as Elliott goes back to talk it over with Luke, we're going to step aside one more time. Don't go anywhere, because we may be wrapping up, but Sprint Cup practice is about to come your way.
NASCAR Nationwide Series Practice is brought to you by City Private Pass. More music, more sports, more family, more dining. Get more access with a City card.
Work going on in the garage area here as first practice is over for the NASCAR Nationwide Series at Charlotte Motor Speedway. Our race coverage Friday at 7 Eastern over on ESPN. Sprint Cup practice just around the corner. But right now, let's get caught up with Justin Allgaier. Dave Burns is with him.
Yeah, he is the driver of the pink race car, Marty. It's all decked out this weekend, and of course for breast cancer awareness. How much accomplished in practice one? How much left to do tonight in the final 50 minutes?
Well, we actually got lucky right there at the end of that first practice. A piece off of somebody's car came apart and went into the splitter of our car. And had our splitter not been on the ground, which is what we didn't want, we probably would have had to pull out a backup car. So I'm glad we missed it a little bit and had the splitter on the ground. But our Brandt Foundation Chevy is really good. I feel like lap times we're running right now, we're competitive with the guys that we're looking at up front. And we still got a little work to do, but getting it off the splitter is the first order of business. Just glad we didn't get it off there too soon.
You'll have a debrief with your teammates down here. What usually happens there in terms of additions and subtractions from different drivers and crew chiefs?
Well, the good thing is with all the cars at Turner Motorsports, we all work really, really closely together. You know, we know where each other's at all times. The engineers and the crew chiefs, they're always looking at where the other teams are at. So we'll go down and we'll sit down and debrief, and it kind of allows us to hit 3 different segments of what we need to accomplish at one time. And so we're going to sit down, figure out what they learned, tell them what we learned and what we didn't learn and what didn't work, and just try and make sure that we get the best package for all 3 of us for tomorrow night's race.
Great. Thanks, Justin. Good luck.
Thank you.
Justin Allgaier. And it's amazing, Marty, with all the cameras we have, there's always something we miss down there.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's talk about what's coming up on the motorsports calendar, because Sprint Cup practice is next, and then at 5:30 Eastern it'll be NASCAR Now. Just keep it on ESPN2, because at 6 o'clock we're back with Nationwide Series final practice, and then following that at 7 Eastern it'll be Cup qualifying. Tomorrow, 4 o'clock Eastern, we have Nationwide qualifying, followed by NASCAR Now at 5. Cup final practice at 5:30 Eastern, all 3 of those on ESPN2. And then our race switch over to ESPN. It's presented by GoDaddy, and that's at 7 Eastern. Saturday at 7 Eastern, it's the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Bank of America 500 at Charlotte, and that is of ABC. So that's going to do it for us right now. As you can see, well, last time we saw those cars, they didn't look that clean and shiny, so we'll send it over to Alan, who's in the pit studio. It's all yours, Alan.